Howdy folks, Spencer here, and today I want to talk to you about the Starfleet Flashback bundle that has just been announced. This bundle contains Tier 6 versions of some of the older T5 ships from the early days of the game, the Patrol Escort, the Star Cruiser, and the Deep Space Science Vessel. In this video, I'll be breaking down the information about the bundle, and then I'll be taking a look at the stats of the three new ships that we're getting here. As always, chapters are listed down below. The first thing I want to talk about is the release date and the cost of this bundle. So the release date for those of us on PC is going to be this Thursday, July 27th, 2023. And for those of you over on console, we can look back to the bundle that they released last year, right around the same time, the Federation Responder bundle. And for that one, that was released a week earlier on July 21st. And then console had it just over a month later on August 23rd. So with there being about a 1 month gap, I think if you're over on console, you can expect this Starfleet Flashback bundle to be out sometime in the later part of August, maybe early September at the latest. So you're not going to have to wait too long compared to some of the other things out there, but there will still be a little bit of a delay if you're on console. Now, the cost of this is 12,500 Zen, and that is a little bit of an increase versus prior bundles of this type. If we go back to the Federation Responder bundle, that had a base cost of 12,000. So Cryptic has raised the price by 500 Zen here, and this is not the only thing in the game they've raised by 500 Zen in the past year. A notable thing has been the event buyout cost. Those have also increased by 500 Zen so far this year. So this will have a 25% introductory discount for the first 2 weeks of its release. So for PC, that's July 27th through August 10th. And at 25% off, that means that the bundle is going to cost 9,375 Zen. Now, the important thing is that there are better sales. Now, if you are an extremely impatient person, you can go get the bundle right away, if you want. But if you don't mind being patient, you can wait for a 35% bundle sale, which they run like every other month at this rate, and you can save yourself about 12.5 bucks. So during a 35% bundle sale, the cost would go down to 8,125 Zen. So if you want to save money, just be patient and wait for a proper bundle sale. Now, if you don't want to buy the bundle at all, the three new ships that are being introduced in this bundle are going to be available for individual purchase. If you purchase them, though, just note that the bundle is not going to get a discount. So if you buy the Intel Escort, you're not going to get a discount on picking the rest of the bundle up. That's just not how things work in this game. But that is an option for those of you that are only interested in, one or two of the ships, is you can just go out and directly pick them up on their own. The cost of each of these ships is going to be the same as any other C-Store ship. So 3,000 Zen. And it is not uncommon for them to do a ship sale alongside the release of a bundle like this. So during the first week or so, you may be able to pick up these ships on their own for like 20 or 25% off, which would make it 2,400 Zen or 2,250 Zen. So if you just want to get the, one or two of the ships again, then that probably will be a better option for most people rather than, paying like $100 for the bundle. And next up, I want to go over the contents of the bundle here. So obviously we have the three new ships, and I'll be diving into their stats here in a few minutes. Then we have a T6 coupon. Now you can use this and get another ship if you want, or you can take that coupon and sell it in Zone Chat or a trade channel. Typically the going rate for these right now is around 350 to 400 million EC. So you can either use it or sell it. That's entirely up to you. Then you've got 8 ship slots, 7 experimental ship upgrade tokens, and 3 fleet ship modules. Now there's some exclusive stuff I'll get to in here in a minute, but I've seen some people confused as to why there's so many ship slots and experimental ship upgrade tokens in this, given that there is the 3 ships plus an additional if you do use the T6 coupon yourself. So if there's 3 to 4 ships in this, then why are you getting 8 ship slots and 7 experimental ship upgrade tokens? Well, you have to realize here that these are your more traditional style C-store ships, meaning these aren't actually like the fully upgraded, highest version of these ships. These are just your standard C-store ones that also have a fleet version out there. Now, owning the C-store version will net you the trait and console that the ship has, and it will net you a discount on what the fleet version costs to obtain, hence why there's the fleet ship modules in this bundle. So this is a thing that they've done for a very long time, and you can see here, I'm looking at the Phantom Intel Escort in game right now. This thing's been out for a very long time. There's a C-store version, and then if I go and look at the fleet tier 6 ships here, there is also a fleet version. Fleet versions of ships get an extra console slot, and they get a 10% boost to the hull and shield capacity on a ship. Now, there's quite a few ships that are already just released at fleet level already, right out of the box. If you look at the ships from the 13th bundle, the 12th bundle, all of those ships, those are already fleet equivalent right out of the box, so there's no need to get a fleet version. However, for this Starfleet Flashback bundle, these work like the older style C-store ships where there is a fleet version out there, meaning if you want to get that extra console slot and that boost to hull and shield capacity, you have to pick the fleet one up alongside, getting the C-store one. So typically what people will do is they'll level up the C-store one to grab the starship trait off of it. They'll discard the C-store ship, and then they'll pick up the fleet version, and then just carry on using that. So what I'd recommend if you're doing that is that you don't burn an experimental ship upgrade token on the C-store version. I would just throw a quick build together on the C-store one, get it leveled up, and then grab the fleet one if you're intending to fly the ship long term. I wouldn't burn something on a ship that you're just using temporarily to get the trait. So that is why you see so many ship slots and experimental ship upgrade tokens here, is because there's the C-store ones that you're getting with this bundle, and then there's an assumption that you're going to go out and also pick up the fleet ones after you've leveled them up. Now, alongside the ships and the related ship stuff there are some bundle exclusives here. So there's a new title called Old School, if that's something that's of interest to you. And then there is a unique uniform that is only unlocked from purchasing this bundle. This is the Picard Starfleet 2387 uniform. And there is a set of next generation ground weapons that you can only get by getting this bundle. So I'll scroll down and show you the pictures of the uniforms now. This is what the uniforms look like. These are, again, the Starfleet 2387 uniforms. And I forget, are these the season 1 uniforms from Picard? I don't remember, but it's from one of the Picard seasons here. So if you've been waiting for those are in the game now. You just have to buy the entire bundle in order to unlock them. Then we've got these various ground weapons. You have the 2364 Type 1 phaser, 2364 Type 2 phaser, 2366 Type 2 phaser, and I think that's just the 3 that they're releasing here with this bundle. So if you're interested in those ground weapons for the visuals or the Picard uniforms, then you have to purchase the entire bundle in order to unlock them. And again, you don't get a discount. If you go out and pick up like the Intel Escort, you're not going to get a discount on the rest of the bundle. So if your intention is to go out and pick up the entire bundle for these things, make sure to just wait. Don't pick up any of the ships on their own. Just wait and pick up the entire bundle in one go, because you will not get a discount if you buy one of the ships and then half a year later go to pick up the bundle. And before I get into the stats, I did just want to quickly mention that Thomas did tweet out that there are no changes to the original skins for these 3 ships. However, they do have access to newer materials, so if you want to go and use those older skins, they'll at least have some more modern materials to utilize. The first ship that I want to talk about today is the Augur Temporal Science Vessel. This ship has a very heavy temporal theme, as you can see by the large lore paragraph that they have up at the top here, but this is very much demonstrated when we get to the stats of this ship. You see, when Cryptic was designing this ship, they very much incorporated a temporal theme. In fact, they traveled back in time. You see, the stats on the Augur, and specifically the fleet version of it, because that's the one that you would be using if you were using the ship long term, is the exact same as one that was released back in June of 2016. The fleet version of the Nautilus, the Fleet Temporal Science vessel, is basically the exact same as the Fleet Augur. The defense stats have changed, the mobility stats have changed, slight difference on the power bonus, but for the stats that really matter, the consoles, the weapons, the bridge officers, for all intents and purposes, the Augur is basically just a reskinned version of the Nautilus. So both of these ships have a 3-3 weapon setup. For the bridge officers, it's a Commander Science with a Temporal Operative, Lieutenant Commander Universal, Lieutenant Commander TAC, Lieutenant Engineer with Temporal Operative, and an Ensign TAC. And for the consoles, 4 TAC, 2 Eng, and 5 Psi. And devices are 3 on both. So it's a copy and paste, basically. It's a reskin of a ship from 2016. It's not necessarily a bad ship. It's just that if you're actually looking to really get into that temporal science EPG playstyle, it's probably not the best option for you. Rather, the ships that are commonly used for that playstyle are things like the Vern, which is a bit expensive, but you could get it through your event campaign, or you can get it account-wide through the Stealing Time Muds pack. Alternatively, at a more accessible level, is the Lucari Dreneur Scout ship. This is unlocked from, or it's available at your fleet shipyard once you have a tier 5 colony world, and that is also a very good platform for the temporal EPG playstyle. There's a lot of flexibility on both the Vern and the Lucari Dreneur there to have much more of a science temporal focus. The issue that you have with the Vern or I'm sorry, the Augur or the Nautilus is that there's all of this non-psi forced seating. You're forced to have all this tax seating, the engineer, and that does limit, what you can do with the temporal EPG type of stuff. So the Augur and the Nautilus, they still work. They're just not necessarily the best options for that playstyle. And I'm just really not happy at seeing this level of effort on a new C-store ship. We don't get a ton of C-store ships, in the current state of the game, it feels like. And when we do get one here and it's just a copy and paste of one from 7 years ago, it's really not great in my opinion. Now, the Augur does have some redeeming factors to it, hopefully, with its secondary items. So let's look. Let's start with the Starship trait. The Starship trait is Temporal Investigator. Using a specialization bridge officer ability for the first time in an area or another ability of the same specialization has a chance to trigger an additional ability of that specialization, and which ability you will get will depend on what specialization was used. So if you hit a pilot ability, you'd have a chance to get one of these 3 abilities: Intel, Command, Temp Op, and so on. Now it's a chance. And in my opinion, this is pretty much a dead on arrival trait. I'm going to just take a guess that the chance for this trait to activate is going to be like 20 to 25%. And do you really want to give up a Starship trait slot that is so highly desirable for something that has a chance to work? My guess is no. So this Starship trait is definitely going to be something that I think most of us can just ignore. Now, the console, on the other hand, does actually look a bit interesting. The console has a neat effect on it. Let's start with the passives first, though. The passives on this console are for aux power. So you're getting some aux power, some EPG skill, and it will cause entropy charges on dead foes to hop to other nearby foes. That last part of the passive could be huge for some of you that are actually using those abilities that benefit from entropy. If you're not using abilities that benefit from entropy, it might not be as valuable, but just gonna have to wait and see there. Now, the clicky on this is that it will apply stacks of enforced timeline primacy to foes affected by energy, drain, shield drain, secondary deflector, or temporal ops abilities. After a short delay, this will deal radiation damage to foes per stack of enforced timeline primacy on them, as well as repeating this damage for any new stacks they may acquire during the remaining duration. So the clicky on this is basically going to function very similar to a secondary deflector, and it will work with the same abilities that a secondary deflector would work with. So this console, honestly, we're gonna have to wait and see what the numbers are like on this. But for science heavy builds, this could be a really good console potentially, especially if you actually take advantage of those entropy abilities there, or the abilities that benefit from entropy, like that could be pretty good. And that clicky, if it does what it says and the damage on it's good, that could be a lot of damage on a science build. So that looks promising, and if it's good, might make this ship worth grabbing for those of you that like EPG stuff. But overall, for the rest of the ship, like I said, it's not bad. It's just I'm not a fan of it being, just a reskin of a ship from 7 years ago. Next up, I want to take a look at the cruiser in this bundle, and I honestly don't know how to pronounce this thing, so I'm just going to butcher it here. The Justiciar Command Star Cruiser. This thing is not terrible. I'm gonna look at the stats of the fleet version here, and if you're curious why there's a slash here, the left one before the slash is the C-store stats, the right is the fleet version. And again, if you're using these ships, you're gonna get the C-store one most likely, grab the console trade off of it, and then you're gonna discard the C-store one and grab the fleet one. That's the ideal way that you use these ships. So I'm going to look at the stats of the fleet one here, and for that it has a 1.5 hull mod, a 1.1 shield mod. It is a 4-4 cruiser, and it does not have the ability to use cannons, just to clarify. 4 device slots, bridge officer wise, does Commander Engineer with Command, Lieutenant Commander TAC, Lieutenant Science with Command, Ensign Science, and Lieutenant Commander Universal. That Lieutenant Commander Universal does give this ship quite a bit of flexibility, and honestly, as a 4-4 platform like this would be a good torp boat. It'll be a good tank platform too, looking at the layout here. So I think the bridge officer layout on this ship is pretty solid. Console-wise, it's 3 TAC, 5 engineering, and then 3 science. You get 2 science on the C-store, 3 on the fleet version. Base turn rate of 9, impulse modifier of 0.15, inertia of 45. Plus 10 to weapon and engine power, no hangar bay. And being a cruiser, it does, of course, have cruiser commands. It has all 4 of them. Being a command ship, it has the inspiration stuff, and it has the generic cruiser mastery package, so plus kinetic and physical damage resistance, plus regen, plus energy and radiation damage resistance, and plus max hull capacity. The Admiralty card stats are here for those of you that care. And the secondary perks of this ship are the Specialist Gear Starship trait and the Micro Warp Shockwave console. Let's start off with the Starship trait here. The Starship trait Specialist Gear, using a specialization bridge officer ability for the first time in a map, or further abilities of that same specialization, triggers an additional effect based on your current target based on that specialization. If the target of your ability is an allied ship, the effect will then target the nearest foe to that ally, I assume. And which effect you get will depend on the specialization used. So basically, if you're using certain specialization abilities, it is going to cause this effect to go off against your nearest foe. Now, with this being a command ship, this command effect that it has is going to be very beneficial. The command effect is going to taunt a nearby foe every time you hit a command bridge officer ability. So for those of you that have been looking for a way to taunt enemies, command has already been the meta for tanking for quite some time now. And this trait, if that taunt is good enough, this trait could be really good for those of you that are wanting to make sure that you are getting enemies to focus on you. So for tanking, this trait looks really interesting. For other playstyles, this trait also looks quite interesting. So if you're using intel abilities, it will shut a random subsystem offline on a nearby foe. That could be really powerful in PvP. If you're using a temp op ability, it will add a stack of entropy to a target. For Miracle Worker, it will drain all subsystem power from your nearest enemy. And for Pilot, it will reduce the chance of the enemy being able to dodge your shot. So this trait looks really interesting. We're going to have to see how impactful these effects are against your enemies, but I do like what this trait is doing, and I think that this has potential to be a nice boost to various playstyles. So good job on this trait, Cryptic. Now, and I should clarify, I don't think this is necessarily going to be a meta DPS trait, but I think that there are playstyles that would heavily benefit from something that is, a guaranteed effect to go off, and that's what this appears to be. I don't see it, it doesn't list that this is a chance. Yeah, it just says that using an ability will trigger an additional effect. So it looks like it's guaranteed, whereas the one on the Augur was a chance. Now, the console is Micro Warp Shockwave. This console provides passive bonuses to hull capacity and damage resistance rating. The clicky on this is going to initiate a micro warp jump to the target location. Upon arrival, the warp bubble collapses violently, dealing physical damage to nearby foes and disabling their weapons subsystems for a period of time. The damage done by the warp bubble additionally scales with the hull capacity of the equipped ship. So this is going to deal more damage based on you having higher hull capacity. And my guess is that you click on a target and you hit this and it will just jump you to that location. So these types of things aren't always that useful in real gameplay, but we'll just have to wait and see how much damage this thing does. Some of the things that scale based on hull capacity have scaled way too aggressively in the past and been able to deal crazy amounts of damage. So we'll have to wait and see how this one performs. I don't think it's going to be a meta console in any way, but it might be something that's really fun to use on some builds. So overall, for this ship, I don't think this is a bad ship. I mean, it's a 4-4 cruiser, so it's not going to be the most popular. I think the trade on it's really interesting, but given that it's a C-store ship and you're going to have to get the fleet one if you want the full effect, if you want the full effect, you may want to consider some of the other command cruisers in the game. And some of the other ones you may want to look at might be like the Terran Sirius. The Terran Sirius has a slightly different setup. It's a 4-4 also, but it has a hangar bay. Slightly different consoles, slightly different bridge officer setup. That might be another ship to consider. And another thing that I'm going to be bringing up near the end of this video is, if you're looking at picking up this entire bundle, you're not that far off from being able to just pick up like the 12th bundle or the 13th bundle. And I think either of those bundles is, really incredible value. And if you go for the 13th and you're explicitly looking for, like a tanking platform, the 13th bundle does have the best tank in the game in that bundle. And that's, a much better version of this Justiciar, whatever it's called, that they're introducing here. It's going to be a little bit different. It's got a hangar bay, but the Styx is definitely a better ship. And if you're looking at picking up the entire bundle, you might be better off going for the 13th bundle and then using the T6 coupon from the 13th bundle to just pick up this Justiciar if you really want the trait. So just keep that in mind if you were, looking at picking up the entire bundle, that at that price point, there are other options that are only going to be like an extra 10 to 20 bucks and might net you something better for the play style that you're aiming for. The last ship that I'll be talking about today is the Cyclone Intel Patrol Escort. The Patrol Escort was a very popular ship way back. It had a unique effect on the Tempest refit version of it, in that it had an aft tail gun. So it was an escort with a 4-4 setup, but one of those aft weapons was actually a dual cannon that was set up so it could only fire behind you, and it permanently had rapid fire on it. So that was a neat thing on that ship. Not too practical, given that in most situations you're going to be wanting to be forward facing against any opponent you're going against, but it was something different, and some people liked the concept. The other thing about the Patrol Escort refit was that it had a console on it that people really liked called the Nadion Saturation Bomb. This Nadion Saturation Bomb basically just shot a big ball of phaser damage out in front of your ship, and it was quite powerful back in the day. Now, unfortunately, with the new Patrol Escort, none of those things have really been carried over. This isn't like just an upgrade, of the past Patrol Escort. Rather, this is pretty much just an entirely different ship that shares the same ship model and the same class as what we had before. So there's no tail gun on the Cyclone, and there's nothing here related to that Nadion charge that people liked. So looking at the stats here, hull modifier is 1.1 on the Fleet one, 1.95, or it's a 0.95 shield mod on the Fleet one, 5-2 weapon setup with an experimental weapon, 2 device slots. Bridge officer setup is a commander tack with intel, lieutenant engineer with intel, lieutenant commander science, ensign science, and a lieutenant commander universal. Not the worst bridge officer setup. You can get a lot done with that setup, but there is some very fierce competition in the intel escort space that I'll be talking about in a few minutes. Console wise, 5 tactical, 1 engineering on the C store, 2 on the Fleet one, then 4 science consoles. That is one place where this ship also differs versus the prior version of the Patrol Escort. The Tempest did have a little bit more of an engineering focus with its console setup, and you are not getting that with the Cyclone here. It's got a science focus instead. Base turn rate is 17, impulse modifier of 0.23, inertia rating of 80, plus 15 to weapon power, plus 5 to engine power. It has an experimental weapon. It can equip cannons. It has a battle cloak on it, which is really good. It has the gather intel ship mechanic, and it has the standard escort mastery package. So plus accuracy, defense, all damage, and crit chance. There's the Admiralty stats for those of you that want it. And before I get into the secondary components, let's take a look at some of the comparable ships out there. And this is where the Cyclone runs into its biggest challenge. You see, earlier this year in the 13th anniversary bundle, the Terran Hydra was released. The Terran Hydra can be purchased on its own in the C store. You don't have to get the entire bundle to get it. You can pick it up on its own for $30. And the thing about the Hydra is that it's a better ship than the Cyclone. It has the same 5-2 weapon setup, slightly different console setup, but the big thing is it's got 2 different specializations on it. It's got a commander tack with intel, just like the Cyclone, a lieutenant commander universal, and where it differs here is that it has a lieutenant commander engineer with pilot, whereas the Cyclone had a lieutenant commander science. And then you can see the Cyclone gets a lieutenant engineer with intel, and the Hydra has a lieutenant science. And then for the last bridge officer seat here, the Cyclone has a fixed science seat, whereas the Hydra has an ensign universal. So the Hydra has more flexibility. The Hydra has a better specialization combo because you get to mix intel and pilot abilities, and you're getting a lieutenant commander secondary spec seat, whereas the Cyclone has the same spec on both of its spec seats, and it's a commander plus a lieutenant. The Hydra's a commander plus a lieutenant commander, and they're different. The only thing that the Cyclone has that the Hydra does not is it has a battle cloak, whereas the Hydra just has a normal cloak. But you don't get to use cloaks a ton in combat, and I will tell you right now, like if you're looking at just picking up a really good tack ship right now, a really good escort, the Hydra is the better option because the Hydra is also fleet level right off the bat. The Patrol Escort here, if you want to get the max version of that, you have to get the C-Store or you have to get the fleet one. The C-Store one is going to be missing some of its hull capacity, shield capacity, and it's going to be losing a console versus the fleet one. So that's a bit rough. I should be able to get that here for you to see. So yeah, you're losing an engineering console with the C-Store one versus the fleet one. So the Terran Hydra, right off the bat, right when you buy it from the C-Store for $30, that's fleet level. You don't have to worry about getting a fleet one. It's already fleet tier. The Cyclone doesn't work like that. The Cyclone, if you want to get its best version, you're going to be forking out a little bit extra to get that fleet one. And even then, it's just not going to be as good of a ship as the Terran Hydra. But it's still a good ship, and if you really want to fly the Patrol Escort, you want that battle cloak, then it'll work well. But the Hydra definitely is the better platform for what you're getting for your money. Now, the Cyclone here does, of course, have some secondary stuff on it, so let's take a look at this stuff first. And I'm going to start out with the Starship trait first, because that's what I've known with the past ships. So the Starship trait here is Adaptive Tactical Algorithms. Using a Specialization Bridge Officer ability for the first time in an area, or another ability of the same specialization, triggers an additional effect on your ship based on that specialization, which effect depends on the specialization used. This, again, does not indicate that this is a chance. This is just saying that when you activate an ability, you're getting this effect. So it seems like 2 of the ships are set up properly to guarantee you're getting the effect, whereas the Augur trait just has a chance for whatever reason. So if you're using intel abilities with this trait, you're going to be getting increased damage and bonus flanking damage. That's pretty solid. For command, when you hit a command ability with this trait on, you're getting a greatly increased damage buff and a whole capacity buff. Both pretty good, especially for tanking or just DPS in general. For temp op, increased damage and EPG. Miracle Worker, increased damage and reduced weapon power cost. That's pretty good also. And for pilot, increased damage and stacking max engine power. So this trait, depending on the numbers, could be insanely good. Again, you got to wait and see what the numbers are. You know, if it ends up being that it's just like a 5% damage buff and an additional, like 5% hull capacity, no one's going to care about it. But if the numbers are, a bit more substantial, like 20-30%, might start to get interesting. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I will definitely be picking this ship up on Thursday and messing around with it. The experimental weapon is the gold type psionic resonator. So for those of you that were looking at the 5 magic trait that recently released and saw that psionic damage was listed, Jonathan hinted that something for psionic would be coming out soon, and here it is. So this is based on the concept of that Vulcan weapon shown in the episode of TNG where Picard infiltrated like a pirate ship. There was a psionic resonator that they were trying to build up there, and basically the psionic resonator would only work against enemies if they had violent thoughts. If they had violent thoughts, it would cause them to act out against their own equipment or hurt themselves. If you use the psionic resonator against people that just had peaceful thoughts, it didn't really do anything against them. So it's an interesting idea. I'm curious to see how it plays out in actual combat. I'm curious to see, how something psionic does in the current state of things. So this will be interesting to play around with. I don't think it's going to be meta, but it might be something fun to just play around with. And the console here is the Sensor Phantom Projector. This has passives for crit severity and flanking directed energy damage. That could be interesting just depending on what the numbers for those are. And the clicky on this is when this ability is activated, the console will project a Sensor Phantom on the far side of the affected foes. Enemies affected by the projection will turn and attack the sensor phantom. Additionally, while the console is active, the bonus it provides to flanking damage is dramatically increased. So it makes the enemy focus on something behind them and turn to engage that sensor thing there, or the sensor phantom behind them, and should make it so that you can target their flank and deal increased damage against them. So interesting concept. We'll have to see how it plays out. Overall, the Cyclone is definitely an interesting ship, and I look forward to playing around with it and the cruiser in this bundle. But again, if you just have $30 and you're looking for the best bang for your buck for like an escort to get, that Terran Hydra is incredibly hard to beat right now. The fact is, even if you get the Cyclone, if you want to put it on a bunch of characters, the Cyclone, you're going to have to get the fleet version on all those characters you want it on. And if you get the C-Store one, the cost is reduced to get the fleet one, but there is still a cost. Getting fleet ship modules, fleet credits, and all that on all your alts can be a bit annoying. The Terran Hydra, you don't have to worry about that. It is automatically fleet equivalent right out of the box, and you don't have to worry about getting a fleet version. So a lot of competition definitely for the Cyclone. I still think it's a good ship. I think it's going to be fun to play around with, but I don't think it's going to necessarily be a meta ship. So it'll be fun, but nothing that should be too game changing. But the trait does look really interesting. The console, depending on the numbers on it, could be interesting, and the experimental weapon, I like seeing that they're trying some new things, and it's a nice lore collection with that. So, or a nice lore correlation with that. So that's quite interesting. And now it's time for my summary and just final thoughts on this Starfleet flashback bundle. Yep, I see what you put in Discord there. Terrible, but that's not far off from what I'm about to say. The bundle is expensive for what it is. They've increased the cost of this bundle compared to what a bundle like this would have cost a year ago. They've increased it a little bit, which I'm not a fan of. And the fact is that the anniversary bundles have really spoiled us players, because the anniversary bundles that we've been getting for the past how many years come with ships that don't require us to go out and pick up a fleet version. One of the perks of these anniversary bundles, like the 12th or the 13th, is that the ships from those bundles are fleet equivalent right out of the box. So even the ones that you can pick up individually in the C-Store, like the Hydra or the Eagle, those are fleet equivalent for $30 in the C-Store. And here we have a bundle that has a base cost of 125 US dollars, and the ships in it aren't bad, but they are your standard C-Store type of ship, where if you were to go out and try to use these things on a bunch of characters and you wanted to get the fleet versions of them, that's going to become rather expensive, because even if you buy the bundle, which has all this fluff in it, including these exclusive visual things that are meant to draw in those of you that just want the space Barbie stuff, like the uniforms of those next gen weapons. Like, even if you buy this bundle, you're not getting enough things here to be able to go through and get the fleet ships on a bunch of characters. You're getting 3 fleet ship modules, which is going to cover the fleet ship module cost for 3 of these ships total on your entire account. And that's not including the cost of, the fleet credits, because the fleet versions of these ships, in addition to requiring a fleet ship module, are also going to need 20,000 fleet credits. They're also going to need a provision from your fleet. That's just how C-Store ships have worked since fleet ships became a thing. So this is an expensive bundle. You're not getting the highest tier ship, right out of the box. If you want the full thing, you have to spend more on top of that. And I don't think the fluff is worth it. I don't think you should be going out and picking this bundle up for, this set of uniforms here. And I don't think you should be getting it for these phasers that probably aren't going to do that much damage anyways. I'm I think there are ships in here that may have use cases for various playstyles. And I think if you really want them, you're probably just going to be better off just buying them directly from the C store during a sale. I think that most people are not going to care about one or two of these ships. I foresee the Augur probably being the least popular in this bundle. The Justiciar Command Star Cruiser, some of you may like that, but that's, at the end of the day, that's just another 4/4 command cruiser. So I don't see that having, too crazy of appeal outside of people going for the Starship trait if that turns out to be good. The Cyclone is the one that's going to be the most appealing to people. And again, the Terran Hydra is a thing, the exact same cost, and it's fleet equivalent right out of the box. You don't have to worry about upgrading it. It is fleet tier the moment you claim it from the C store. Whereas the Cyclone, if you want the fleet version, or if you want the highest version of that, you have to go out and pick up the fleet version, which is going to be added cost. So once you consider that there's added cost to actually getting the highest versions of these ships account wide, that starts to bring into question of, is this the right bundle for you to pick up? The initial discount is going to be 25%, making this cost right under $94. During a 35% sale, the cost will be 8,125 Zen, or like $81. Now, considering that you're going to also be needing to probably grab some fleet ship modules for any alts you're running these ships on, yes, you can get free ones from your reputation, but if you're buying and upgrading lots of ships for your alts, you may not have those anymore, especially if those alts have been around for a long time. For $30 more, you can, during a 35% sale, you can pick up the 12th anniversary bundle or the 13th. Both of those bundles blow this flashback bundle just completely out of the water with the value that they offer. Both the 13th and the 12th have more ships. In fact, the 13th bundle, that has a total of 6 ships directly in the bundle, plus a T6 coupon, and each of the ships that are in the bundle, those are already fleet equivalent, and 2 of them are, or one of them is a former lockbox ship, and the other is a former promotional ship. The 12th bundle, the 4 Terran ships there are all fleet equivalent, and then you're getting the Mirror Strike Wing Escort on account-wide unlock, which is a lockbox ship. So, if you're dumping the type of money into the game that you would need to get the flashback bundle, if you don't already have the 12th or 13th bundle, you are doing yourself a disservice by going for the flashback bundle before one of those bundles. Because either the 13th or the 12th are going to bring more things in for you that that are going to boost your playstyle and open up new playstyles for you to try and mess around with. So if it were up to me, if I'm sitting here with $100 that I'm about to put into the game, between the flashback bundle and some of those other bundles like the anniversary ones, or even some of the legendary ones that are in there, like the legendary Romulan Warbird bundle, if I'm looking at these different bundles, the flashback is never being chosen. I can't recommend it over the other things in the game, especially given its cost and the fact that there's going to be so much additional cost over time every time you want to put one of these ships on a new character and then go out and get the fleet version of them. So that's my thoughts on it. I think some of the traits are interesting. The only trait that's not interesting is the Augur one, because it has a chance, whereas the other 2 traits have, or at least seem to have, a guaranteed effect. The console on the Augur might be meta for science stuff. The cruiser here, the console's probably just going to be a fun thing. The trait could end up being meta for tanking. We'll have to wait and see. And for the patrol escort, the trait on that could end up being meta depending on the numbers on it. The experimental weapon just looks like a fun thing, and the sensor phantom projector console on it, its value is going to depend on how good the passives and clicky on it are. We just have to wait for the numbers there. So I know there's a few things I probably didn't get to in this video today, but if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. And I will note that I will be streaming Thursday, right when this bundle goes live, I will be picking up the ships from it using some T6 coupons that I picked up with EC. So I'm not getting the bundle. I'm not going to be testing the uniforms or the next gen weapons, but I will have the ships on hand and I will be playing around with them on that stream. So if you want to see the stats, how they are on live, stop by on Thursday or wait for a video where I recap things. That's going to be it for today. Again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them down below. And thank you again to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. More content coming soon. See you guys around.